There comes a point in life, not always marked by a birthday or a calendar, when the world around us begins to quiet down, and for the first time in a long time, we can actually hear ourselves think. It's not that life has grown easier, but that we've grown quieter inside. The noise of ambition fades, the weight of proving something to someone else begins to lift, and we start to see things not as we were taught to see, but as they truly are. I remember sitting with a friend one fall afternoon, both of us in our 60s, watching the leaves drift slowly down from an old maple tree. He looked over, not with urgency, but with the kind of softness that only life can teach, and he said, "You know, I wish someone had told me the truth sooner. Not the polite kind, not the kind printed in greeting cards, but the kind that rattles you a little, the kind that frees you." That sentence stayed with me, because isn't that what so many of us yearn for? Not more advice, not more noise, but quiet truths that come from living, failing, loving, losing, and simply enduring. We were raised on ideas that seemed safe. Avoid pain, keep people happy, follow the plan, wait for the perfect time. Yet, as the decades unfold, and the mirror begins to reflect more than just age, perhaps it reflects clarity, we begin to question, what if those ideas were never the truth at all? This isn't a video of criticism. It's not a list of what you should have done differently. Instead, it's a soft lantern in a dim hallway, revealing 10 truths that may have arrived a little late, but just in time to matter. Some will feel familiar, like a memory you had forgotten. Others may feel like a nudge from a wiser, gentler version of yourself, the one you've been becoming all along. So settle in, breathe deeply, and allow these quiet lessons to find you, not because they're loud or urgent or dramatic, but because, finally, you're ready to hear them. Let's begin. 1. Pain is the path, not the punishment. Suffering is not holding you. You are holding suffering. The Buddha. It's strange, isn't it? How often we spend our lives running from pain, only to realize too late that it was the very thing trying to wake us up. In our younger years, we think pain is something to be avoided at all costs. We label it as a curse, an enemy, a failure. But as we age, as our hair silvers and our pace slows, we begin to see it differently. Pain becomes a mirror, a teacher, a doorway. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering is not punishment. It's invitation, an invitation to see clearly, to release, to grow. When the body aches in the morning, when the joints stiffen with the changing seasons, when old wounds, emotional or physical, rise back to the surface, the first reaction is often frustration. Why me? Why now? But what if, instead of turning away from the discomfort, we turned toward it? What if pain is not here to break us, but to break us open? There's an old Zen story of a monk who walked barefoot through the mountains each day, rain or shine. One winter, a novice asked him, "Master, don't your feet hurt on the cold stones?" The monk smiled and replied, "Yes, but the stones remind me that I am still alive, still walking, still free." The novice didn't understand until years later, when he too had lived long enough to feel the sacredness of every ache. You see, growth, real growth, always asks for something in return. The stretching of muscle, the shedding of skin, the softening of pride. It's a process, and like a lotus rising from the mud, we cannot bloom unless we're willing to get a little dirty, to sit in what's uncomfortable and allow it to transform us. When you were younger, you might have been praised for toughing it out. Now, in your golden years, strength looks different. It's softer, quieter. It's in the ability to sit with your suffering without needing to escape it. To say, "Yes, this hurts, and still, I will breathe through it." That is true spiritual courage. Buddha taught that life is marked by dukkha, a word often translated as suffering, but more accurately means unease or unsatisfactoriness. It's the ache of impermanence, the sorrow of loss, the restlessness of wanting things to be different. But dukkha is not meant to depress us, it's meant to awaken us. And perhaps the greatest awakening comes when we realize pain is not the opposite of peace. Pain accepted and understood leads to peace. So if you find yourself hurting from grief, from change, from aging, take heart. You are not alone. You are simply becoming. And just like the strongest trees grow against the wind, your soul too is bending toward the light. Breathe into it, walk with it, let it shape you. The path is not smooth, but it is sacred. 2. Be peaceful, not complacent. Few among men are those who cross to the farther shore. The others merely run up and down the bank on this side, the Dhammapada. There's a quiet danger that often creeps in during our later years. Not illness, not loneliness, but something subtler, complacency. It can wear the face of comfort. It can whisper with the voice of contentment. You've done enough, it says. Now just coast. And for a time, it feels like peace. But soon something within begins to stir. A restlessness, a faint ache of the soul. You wake up one morning and feel a hollowness where curiosity used to be. That, dear friend, is the signal. Buddhism teaches us to be content. Yes, but not complacent. There's a world of difference. Contentment is a soft smile of the heart. It means accepting this moment fully. I have enough. I am enough. But complacency, it's a shutting down, a slow fading of the spirit. It says, there is nothing left to explore, nothing more to give. But the truth is, so long as you breathe, your journey is not over. Peace is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of alignment. And when we are in alignment with growth, even at 60, 70, 80 years old, there is a quiet fire that burns inside. There's a beautiful Haitian proverb, behind mountains are more mountains. What wisdom that holds. Every time we reach a peak in life, a retirement, a recovery, a new perspective, there's always another rise ahead, waiting to be climbed. Not for status, not for fame, but for the soul's deep longing to continue unfolding. One elderly woman I once met in a temple garden told me, after my husband passed, I thought my story had ended. But when I began volunteering at the hospice down the road, something opened again. I realized I still had so much love to give. Her eyes were filled with the kind of joy that only comes from giving beyond expectation. You see, the soul doesn't retire. It yearns, not in a frantic, restless way, but like a seed still pushing upward towards sunlight, even when others have stopped looking. Buddha never said to stop striving. He said to let go of striving for what is hollow. Strive instead for truth, for compassion, for clarity. That kind of striving brings peace, not exhaustion. So how do you know if you're at peace or if you've grown complacent? Ask yourself this: is my heart still curious? Do I still long to learn, to love, to understand more deeply? If the answer is yes, then keep going. Keep reading, keep tending your garden, both the one in your yard and the one in your soul. Peace is not stillness. It's purposeful stillness, like a pond that reflects the sky, not because nothing moves, but because it flows in harmony. So be content. Yes, rest when you must, but do not let your spirit settle into still water. There is more to see, more to offer, more mountains to cross. 3. Let go of the opinions that chain you. Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner. Lao Tzu, at a certain point in life, maybe after 60, maybe after loss, maybe after enough quiet mornings alone with your coffee, a strange clarity begins to set in. Most of the voices you spent years listening to weren't even your own. You wore clothes to please someone else's expectations. You took jobs that looked good on paper. You smiled when you wanted to scream. And when you were hurt, you swallowed it because you didn't want to appear too sensitive or too much. And now, with the wisdom that age grants, you may find yourself looking back and wondering, why did I let their opinions matter so much? Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a sky, vast, spacious, and inherently free. But over time, we let clouds gather, judgments, labels, expectations, gossip, and if we don't learn to gently let them drift away, they darken the whole view. There's a parable of the Buddha encountering a man who insulted him harshly. Instead of reacting, the Buddha smiled and asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man, baffled, replied, "To the one who offered it." The Buddha said, "Then I do not accept your anger. It remains with you." How powerful to choose which offerings we accept and which we simply let pass through. Imagine if, just for one day, you stopped performing, stopped explaining, stopped trying to fit the mold of who your family, your friends, your community expected you to be. What would that day feel like? Frightening or liberating? Here's the truth that stings at first, but frees you in the end. Most people are too consumed with their own lives to think about you for long. And those who do judge, harshly, consistently, are often projecting their own fears onto your life. You don't owe anyone your suffering to make them feel more comfortable, so let them talk, let them whisper, let them misunderstand you. Your job is not to be understood by everyone. Your job is to understand yourself, fully, lovingly, and without apology. If you continue to live shackled by their opinions, you will never walk your own path. And you were not born to be a copy. You were born to be a light. The late Vietnamese Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Freedom is not given to us by anyone. We have to cultivate it ourselves." And what is more freeing than releasing the chains of judgment and stepping finally into your own truth? So breathe deep. Let their voices fade like passing winds through the trees. Return to the stillness beneath the noise. That's where your true voice has been waiting all along. 4. Choose one thing and devote your heart. The man who chases two rabbits catches neither. Confucian proverb. In a world that constantly tells us to do more, be more, and try everything, we rarely pause to ask ourselves, at what cost? By the time we reach the later chapters of life, the question changes. It's no longer about how much we can do. It becomes what still matters enough to give our whole heart to. In Buddhism, there's a concept called right effort, part of the Noble Eightfold Path. It doesn't mean relentless doing, it means wise doing, devoted doing, doing one thing with full attention, with sincerity, with presence, not scattered, not hurried, just whole. Too many of us, especially earlier in life, spend our energy climbing multiple ladders at once. But as we age, we begin to understand something that feels almost sacred. Depth is more meaningful than breadth. There's a story from a Japanese Zen monastery of a young monk who asked his master, "How can I achieve enlightenment faster?" The master replied, "When you walk, just walk. When you eat, just eat. When you breathe, just breathe." The monk, puzzled, said, "But I already do these things every day." The master smiled gently. "No, you rush through them, you touch everything, but you enter nothing." That right there is the modern condition. We skim the surface of life, distracted by endless options, only to feel emptier than ever. The antidote: choosing one thing and entering it fully. It could be tending to your garden. It could be mentoring a younger soul. It could be walking each morning in silence and prayer. But whatever it is, let it be sacred. Let it be enough. let it be yours. The Buddha taught that a person who is mindful and clearly aware, active with full effort, lives in peace. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about placing your attention like a lantern, not scattered across a dozen hills, but glowing steadily in one sacred valley. One elderly man once told me, "I used to chase money, then I chased approval, then I chased hobbies. Now I sit with my dog under the oak tree, and that's where I've done the best thinking of my life." His voice cracked, not with sadness, but with peace. So if you find yourself weary, scattered, unsure of what to focus on, pause, not to plan more, but to listen. What still tugs at your heartstrings when everything else grows quiet? Find that one thing and pour yourself into it, like tea into a single waiting cup. Let it be your practice, your art, your offering. You don't need 10 passions to live a meaningful life. You need one, done with devotion. 5. Let regret be your real fear, not rejection. So in the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take. Buddhist proverb, some fears shout, others whisper, but none linger as long or cut as deeply as the silent, aching regret of things we never tried. As we age, rejection loses its sharpness. We stop caring so much about awkward silences or disapproving glances. But regret? Regret is different. It doesn't bruise the ego. It bruises the soul. And yet, how often in life do we let fear of embarrassment, judgment, or failure keep us from speaking, from trying, from beginning? We wait, we hesitate, we rehearse, but never perform. Buddhism gently reminds us that impermanence is not just about death, it's about missed moments. It's about realizing that every unspoken word, every love left undeclared, every talent left untouched is a kind of fading away. Not because life took it, but because we didn't claim it. There's a story told in Buddhist circles of a young monk who wished to confront his fear of speaking. His master led him to a dark cave and said, "Inside waits your fear. Sit with it." The monk entered and saw nothing, just shadows, echoes of his own breath. But with each hour of silence, he realized the fear was not a beast. It was the absence of action. The longer he delayed, the louder the echo. When he finally stood and spoke aloud into the cave, it stopped. The silence was filled. The echo ended. That's how regret begins, in the space we refuse to occupy. So many people, especially later in life, find themselves asking, what if I had spoken up? What if I had taken that trip? What if I had told them I loved them before they passed? But the time for what if is over. The question now is, what now? If there's something tugging at your heart, some dream or decision that won't leave you alone, that's not a coincidence. That's your life, asking to be lived. Let the fear of future regret be stronger than the fear of temporary rejection. Let it fuel you. Yes, you might fail. Yes, they might say no. But even so, you will know. You will sleep easier. You will have tried. And that is more than most ever do. Remember, the Buddha left behind royalty, not because it was unbearable, but because he feared something far worse. A life unexamined, a life unlived. You don't need to leap, but take the first step. Make the call, write the letter, open the door. Don't let your final thoughts be filled with silent could-have-beens. Rejection stings for a season. Regret haunts a lifetime. So speak now, try now, begin now. Later may never come, but peace, joy, and liberation live on the other side of the step you take today. 6. Keep walking. Timing will find you. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. The Buddha, there's an illusion many of us carry, often quietly, sometimes for decades, that says, I'm waiting for the right time. But here's the tender truth. There is no perfect moment. The sky doesn't turn a brighter blue. The wind doesn't whisper, "Now." Life just happens. And if we don't step into it, we miss it. In Buddhism, this is the heart of mindfulness. To live fully, not when the conditions are ideal, but when the breath is now. How many opportunities have slipped through our fingers, not because they weren't meant for us, but because we stood still, watching, waiting, wondering. We tell ourselves, "I'll start walking again when my knees feel better. I'll call my son when things calm down. I'll meditate when I'm not so tired. I'll begin that dream when I have more time." But the right time isn't a date on the calendar. It's the moment you decide to begin. There's an old Buddhist image, a traveler walking a long winding path. Along the road are gates, life events, relationships, blessings, but they only appear if he keeps moving. If he waits, the gates remain invisible, shrouded by time and hesitation. The journey itself reveals the way. One elderly practitioner shared a story with me once. She had lost her husband after 40 years of marriage. "I didn't know who I was without him," she said, "so I waited for signs, for energy, for courage, but nothing came. Until one day, I just got up and went for a walk. I passed a small art studio and wandered in. That's where my second life began." She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. The sign was waiting for me. In truth, perfect timing is a myth, but readiness is real, and readiness is born not from predicting the future, but from persisting through the present. Every day you keep showing up to your breath, your practice, your life, is a day that makes you stronger, steadier, wiser. And when that chance does come, when that invitation or door appears, you'll already be walking. You'll be ready. Let your mantra be this: I don't wait for the moment, I become the moment. So keep going, even if slowly, even if uncertain, especially then. Because as long as you're walking with intention, the path will unfold, not before you, but beneath your feet. 7. Stop comparing. Start becoming. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Lao Tzu. Let's be honest, even after 60, even after surviving heartbreak, loss, and decades of life's ups and downs, the trap of comparison still lingers. You may see old classmates with bigger homes, friends whose health seems better, grandchildren who visit more often, or neighbors who just seem to be doing better. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispers, "Why not me?" But here's a truth that Buddhism teaches with such compassion: you are not them. And that is your gift, not your flaw. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha warns of mana, the mental poison of comparison. It's not just envy, it's measuring yourself against another's path, and in doing so, forgetting your own. You see, comparison is a thief dressed in reasonable clothing. It says, "I just want to understand how I'm doing." But what it really does is steal your peace, your purpose, and your power in exchange for someone else's illusion. There's a story told in Zen tradition. A student asks the master, "Why am I not making progress like the others?" The master replies, "Because instead of walking your path, you keep staring at theirs. Keep your eyes on your feet, and the mountain will carry you." And isn't that true? When you're hiking and looking too much to the side, you stumble. The trail becomes blurry. But when you center yourself, breathe deeply, and look forward, every step is sacred. In our later years, the world subtly tells us to compare in cruel ways. Look how young she looks for her age. He still plays tennis. They travel more. But peace comes when you realize your journey has never been a competition. Your life is not late. It is not behind. It is precisely where it is meant to be. The only person you were ever meant to outgrow is the person you were yesterday. Instead of watching others, ask, am I kinder today than I was last year? Am I braver in speaking truth? Am I more at peace when I sit in stillness? These are the true markers of becoming. So when comparison knocks, smile gently and close the door. Return your gaze to the mirror, not to judge, but to witness. You have not fallen behind. You have only just begun becoming. And remember, no flower opens in the shadow of another. It turns toward its own sun. 8. Speak the difficult truths. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. The Buddha, there's a silence that isn't peaceful. It's not the calm stillness of meditation or the hush of dawn. It's the kind of silence that weighs on the chest, knots the stomach, and lingers in your throat. It's the silence of the truth, left unsaid. As we grow older, many of us carry unspoken truths like stones in our pockets, memories that ache, resentments unhealed, boundaries never drawn, love never confessed. And we convince ourselves, it's not the right time, or I don't want to cause trouble, or they won't understand anyway. But here's the paradox. The longer we avoid the hard conversation, the harder life becomes. Buddhism doesn't ask us to avoid discomfort. It teaches us to walk through it, mindfully, compassionately, but honestly. In fact, one of the principles of right speech in the Noble Eightfold Path is this: speak truthfully, at the right time, with kindness and intention. Sometimes, truth feels like a bitter herb, strong and difficult to swallow. But it's also the medicine that heals old wounds festering beneath silence. A woman in her 70s once told me how she spent years avoiding a difficult talk with her estranged sister. We kept sending each other holiday cards, she said, but never spoke about the thing that split us. It was the elephant in every room I walked into. Then one day, she picked up the phone, her hands trembling, and said, "I miss you. I was wrong. I also felt hurt." There were tears, yes, awkward pauses, but also healing and relief. "I had waited 20 years, she said, but it only took one conversation to set me free." You see, difficult conversations don't always lead to perfect endings, but they do lead to clarity, and often to liberation. When we remain silent out of fear, what we're really doing is choosing short-term ease over long-term peace. And peace in Buddhist thought doesn't come from ignoring suffering. It comes from understanding it, naming it, sitting with it. So if there's a conversation you've been postponing with a family member, a friend, or even with your younger self, ask yourself, what is the cost of silence? Speak not to blame, not to wound, but to release, to connect, to clear the karma between you and another being. Even a few words, spoken with love and truth, can change the course of a relationship or a lifetime. So let this be the season you lighten the load. Say what your heart has been carrying, not to change the past, but to free your future. The truth doesn't need to be loud, it only needs to be said. 9. Endurance builds the inner mountain. As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. The Dhammapada, life, for all its beauty, doesn't always give us a choice, but it does give us the strength to endure. And sometimes, when all else fades, endurance is the quiet miracle that saves us. You've lived long enough to know not every storm can be avoided. Not every heartache can be soothed in time. Not every loss can be prevented. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still rising, still walking. That, dear friend, is no small thing. Endurance isn't flashy. It doesn't get applause. No one cheers for the elder who wakes up in pain, but still waters the garden, or the widow who eats alone. Again, but sets the table for herself with grace. Or the grandfather who writes letters to his grandchildren, even when they forget to reply. But in Buddhist thought, true strength is not in resistance, it's in stability. The calm within chaos, the breath that continues, the heart that softens instead of hardening. There's an old Zen teaching that says, when nothing is certain, anything is possible. But before possibility comes, we must be willing to stand in the unknown, to outlast the winter, to stay rooted when the winds come howling. I once met a 78-year-old man who had lost nearly everything: his wife, his business, his sense of direction. "What kept you going?" I asked. He smiled, then said softly, "Every morning I made tea, even when I didn't feel like it. I told myself, if I can boil water today, I can face the rest." That small act, the boiling of water, became his ritual of endurance, his proof that the mountain inside him hadn't crumbled. And that's the truth. Your inner mountain is built not in grand gestures, but in daily faith, in showing up, in not giving up, in saying, "I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I will meet it." Buddhism honors this. In Pali, the word khanti means patience, but also forbearance, perseverance, spiritual toughness, not gritted teeth, but open palms, a kind of strength that says, even if this moment hurts, it will not define me. So if you are tired, if the journey feels long, rest, but do not quit. Breathe, but do not collapse. You have already endured more than most will ever understand. And you didn't just survive, you became steady, like the mountain, like the Dharma itself. 10. Don't give away your power by blaming. You are the master of your life. Whatever you think, you become. The Buddha. There's a hidden cost to blame, and it's not just broken relationships or bitterness. It's the quiet surrendering of your inner power. The moment you say, "I can't move forward because of them," you've handed them the steering wheel of your life. And often them isn't even around anymore. A parent who hurt you, a friend who betrayed you, a boss who overlooked you. But their shadow still lingers, not because they're present, but because you've kept their echo alive. Buddhism invites us to examine this deeply, not to dismiss pain, but to ask, am I still letting this story write my life? There's a powerful parable in Buddhist teachings of two monks crossing a river. They come across a woman unable to pass. Though monks weren't permitted to touch women, one monk lifts her up and carries her across. Hours later, the second monk says, "How could you break our vows?" The first monk replies, "I set her down at the riverbank. Why are you still carrying her?" That's what blame does. It's carrying something long after the moment has passed. And it gets heavier, not lighter, with time. I once spoke with a woman in her 60s who hadn't spoken to her brother in over 30 years. When I asked why, she said, "Because he was never there when I needed him." I paused, then gently asked, "And who's not there now?" She looked away, tears in her eyes. "Me," she whispered. "You see, blame is seductive because it lets us avoid responsibility. It says, they broke it, so I don't have to fix it." But the Buddha taught, responsibility is not blame, it is freedom. It's the moment you say, "I may not have caused this pain, but I will no longer let it define my life." You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to do with what happened to you. And that choice, to stop pointing the finger outward and turn inward with compassion, is the moment you reclaim your life. So if there's a person, a system, a past you're still blaming, pause. Not to excuse them, but to release yourself. Ask, what would my life look like if I no longer handed my power to the past and breathe into that vision? You are not broken. You are blooming beneath the soil of old stories. You don't need anyone's permission to grow beyond what hurt you. The gate was never locked. You've held the key all along. Now, let go of the blame. Step into your power and walk the rest of your path, free. And now, as we arrive at the end of this gentle journey through 10 quiet but powerful truths, perhaps what lingers isn't just the words we've shared, but the spaces between them, the stillness, the recognition, the subtle but unmistakable knowing that something in you has shifted, even just slightly. We spoke of pain, not as punishment, but as a portal. We talked about peace, not as passivity, but as presence. We unwrapped the courage to speak, the wisdom to endure, the strength to stop comparing, and the freedom that comes when we let go of blame. Most of all, we remembered that regret, not failure, is what we should fear most, and that timing, no matter how uncertain, always finds those who simply keep walking. Each of these truths, whether new to you or long buried, points toward one quiet, liberating message. It is never too late to reclaim your life. Not through grand gestures, not through rewinding time, but through this breath, this moment, this gentle return to your own path. So let me ask you now, what are you still carrying that no longer serves you? What truth have you delayed speaking to others or to yourself? What quiet calling have you silenced in the name of waiting for the right time? And if today, not next week, not next year, if today was the day you began again, where would you begin? Remember, you are not behind, you are not broken, you are simply awakening at your own rhythm, in your own time. There is no final destination in this life, only deeper layers of understanding, compassion, and becoming. Let these truths guide you gently forward, not as rules to live by, but as mirrors that reflect who you've always been underneath the noise. And if this video offered you even a moment of clarity, a spark of courage, or a breath of peace, we invite you to stay with us on this journey. Subscribe to Quiet Wisdom, where each week we explore the unseen, the unsaid, the quietly powerful, for hearts that are still growing, no matter their age. Thank you for walking with us. Until next time, breathe gently, live wisely, and remember, the quietest steps often lead to the deepest freedom.